Okay, good morning again, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Crystal Sutherland, and I'm the Director of Education and Employment Services at FIU Embrace Education. Just so you are aware, I will be recording the session, and for all persons who have joined, I will be sending a copy of the recording to you in order for you to review, because I do know it gets difficult at times to take notes based on what it is that we're discussing. I have with me this morning on the call, Nicole Atong. She's our Executive Director. And I also have Paola Sinclair, who is joining as well. And Paola is our Senior Program Coordinator at FIU Embrace, and she works directly in the education program. In order to ensure that everybody is hearing well, I'm going to ask you kindly to keep yourselves muted. But if it is that you do have a question, to please go ahead and type the question in the chat. Paola and Nicole will be assisting me with monitoring and managing that chat. And we will, of course, respond to all questions as best as possible when we get a break in the session in order to do so. Okay, so let's get started.
Crystal, excuse me, but can we inform everyone of the closed captions available to them?
Sure, there is closed captioning enabled. So you are able to access that on your end. I believe you should have a notification at the bottom of your screen prompting you, so you can go ahead and access the closed captioning if that is an accommodation that will be beneficial to you. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the FIU Embrace Non-Degree Seeking Program. And our FIU Embrace Non-Degree Seeking Program is a program at Florida International University. It is a 3-year non-degree certificate program on the university's campus, and it is a fully inclusive program for adults between the ages of 18 through to 28 with a diagnosis of intellectual disabilities and/or autism. And this is for students that have exited the program. In my explanation, I mentioned the age group, 18 through to 28, but for families who may be on the call, who may have a son or daughter that is over the age of 28, if you believe at the end of this discussion that the program would still be beneficial to your son or daughter, I'm going to ask you to kindly reach out to me for a separate discussion, because we are exploring a pilot group of students who have passed this age limit. So just so that you are aware. But as I mentioned, it's a 3-year program for individuals that have exited the high school and with a diagnosis of intellectual disabilities and/or autism. And the primary goal of the program is for our students to be engaged in meaningful employment. So for our students to be able to secure competitive integrated employment when they have exited our program. And of course, the second goal is for our students to be able to live independently in community when they have exited the program. And of course, independence looks different for every student, right? And every family. The student is a very big part of deciding what independence looks like. So there are some students that for them, independent means that they want to live, let's say, in an apartment by themselves with friends or with persons that they have met, a roommate. And for other students, independent means still staying in the home, but probably having more autonomy, participating more in chores, making more decisions regarding their day-to-day life. So over the 3 years of the program, in addition to preparing the students to work, we're also preparing the students to live independently. So who is eligible for the program? That's a big question that we get asked all the time. As I mentioned, the persons who are eligible for this program are those who have a documented intellectual disability and/or autism. And we do have families who will reach out to us. They may have a psychological evaluation and they're not able to understand the document. So they'll reach out to say, hey, I know my son or daughter has a diagnosis. I'm not fully understanding what it is. I would say that would be a conversation to just reach out to the program. We'll get on a call with you to help you to understand if your son or daughter has a diagnosis that would make you eligible for the program, because we do understand that parents are at different levels of understanding and there are some parents who do understand these documents and some parents who do not. The student, go ahead, Nicole.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to clarify just a little bit more the diagnosis. So when we talk about our students, they fall under the developmental disability diagnosis. Most of our students have intellectual disability or autism, but we could also include students who have Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, etc. So while it is not exclusive, the program is not exclusive to intellectual disability and or autism, that is the majority of the students that we have applying for us right now. So I just want to sort of put that out there. I didn't mean to interrupt. I know you want to roll. Crystal, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Nicole, no problem. The student has to also be a student that has exited high school, and the student has to demonstrate that they have exited high school. So we are not looking on the student's GPA. We're not looking on the type of diploma that the student has. The student just needs to be a student that has exited high school. There are times that at the time that the family starts to prepare the application, let us say you're working on this application when the student is in the 12th grade, and at the time that you're submitting the application, you do not have a document to say that the student has exited high school because they have not yet graduated. So in that case, what you would get is a letter from perhaps the principal at the school to say that the student is scheduled to graduate or the student is scheduled to exit high school before they are going to be starting the FIU Embrace Education Program. So we just need a document, as I said, to show that the student has exited high school. The student must have the legal authority to make decisions that would enable them to participate in the program. And this is a particular criteria that results in a lot of questions, usually from parents. So if it is that the student has a plenary guardianship in place or there's a full guardianship in place, so this student is not able to make any decisions independently, then unfortunately this student would not be a student that is eligible for the program. I want families and I want parents and students to remember that our program is at a university. It is a large open university campus. The students are young adults. The program is structured in that way. And so the students must be able to make decisions that would allow them to independently function in the program. So these are decisions regarding education, decisions regarding employment, decisions regarding social activities. To be clear, there are some students in the program that have perhaps a power of attorney in place, or there may be a limited guardianship in place, and this is not allowing the students to independently make decisions regarding health or finances. Those are not decisions that would hinder their independent participation in the program, right? So the plenary guardianship, that student would not be eligible. If there's a limited guardianship in place or some other type of guardianship document, then it would depend on what the student is able to do independently and not able to do independently. But the thought process behind it is that the student has to be able to independently make decisions that would allow them to fully participate in the program. Between the ages of 18 through to 25 on admission to the program. For those persons that have joined late, welcome. I see you coming in. Please note that the session is being recorded. So I'm going to be emailing a copy of the recording out to everyone. So earlier in the conversation, I mentioned that we're exploring a pilot version of this program to admit students who have passed or current age cap. So that is students who are older than 25 on admission to the program. If it is that after listening to this presentation, you believe that this program is appropriate for your son or daughter, but the limiting factor is the age, please feel free to reach out to us for us to have additional conversations with you and your family to see if your son or daughter would be eligible for the pilot version of the program for older students that we're looking to roll out in the next academic year. As a part of our application process, the student applicant must complete a psychological and adaptive testing through FIU Embrace. So even though a psychological evaluation may be submitted as a part of the application packet, we do conduct our own psychological and adaptive testing through FIU Embrace. We are aware that these tests are very costly. So if it is that we request the test, we pay the cost of the test. The only way the family has to reimburse us, and it is in the application documents, there is a form there for families to sign, is if we offer a place of acceptance to a student and the student declines. In that case, then the funding is reimbursed. But for everyone else that we test, whether or not you're accepted in the program, FIU Embrace stands the cost of that psychological evaluation, if it is that you get to the stage where we would conduct the psychological evaluation. On each, go ahead, Nicole.
Sorry, Crystal, I just want
Sure.
to say the reason why we do that is because we self-evaluate. We have an entire evaluation team, and we always look to see whether the program is effective and whether our students are making progress. So at different points, if a student is accepted at different points through the program, the student will be reassessed for adaptive scoring and executive functioning, etc., to determine if they have improved over time. And so that allows us to determine whether what we are doing works or it doesn't. And so that's why the initial evaluation is no cost if the family determines that they will be accepting the spot. Additionally, we use the application for scholarship determination, and we'll get that into that later in the conversation.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay, so on this eligibility criteria slide here, I went through the top points that we tend to get several questions from families. The actual application document, however, will have the exhaustive list with the criteria. Paola, my colleague, if it hasn't already been done, is going to be putting our contact information in the chat for you guys to all see. If it is that on reviewing the full application document, you have any question at all, please feel free to reach out to any of us and we will clarify them accordingly. But as I mentioned, I went through the ones that tend to be the areas that families have the most questions. Other things to think about though is that, as I mentioned, this is a program that is on Florida, FIU's campus, Florida International University. It is a large campus. It is an open campus. So the students have to be students who are able to independently navigate the campus by themselves. So our program does not have an aide that follows the students around. So the students that are entering the program have to be students that are able to traverse the campus on a day-to-day basis independently. The campus is large, so of course we do have staff who are going to show them around, show them where their classes are. We have several university apps with maps to help them to navigate the campus. So we would do all of that to ensure that the students are able to get from point A to point B as best as possible. That being said, the student still has to be able to do so independently. So these are some things to think about when we're trying to figure out if it is that students would be able to be successful in the program, right? We're talking about students where if they are taking medications, they're able to independently administer whatever medications they have to take throughout the day, because of course we would not have staff who would be able to do this for the students. So as I mentioned, the application document does have the exhaustive list. And if in reviewing the documents, there are any other questions, definitely feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll be more than happy to provide any clarification needed. Okay, program components. This is the exciting part. What's really happening in our program? It's a full-time program on the university's campus where students are engaged in academic classes. So this is a non-degree seeking program. So our students are not earning credits for the classes that they're taking, but they are taking typical university classes with their neurotypical peers. So they're going in the same classes that the other FIU students are engaged in. And they're going in these classes, they're participating in group work, they're engaging with the professors, They're learning the content to the best of their ability with supports. And in my next slide, I'll go through the different supports that our students have. And the students are taking a maximum of 2 FIU classes per semester. So that's the fall semester, the spring semester, and in the summer semester, which is a much shorter semester, the students are taking 1 FIU class. We have program advising, and basically program advising is the students sitting with an FIU Embrace staff to ensure that they're keeping on track to achieve and earn whatever track it is that they're on. So let me step back for a second. The students do not earn degrees, as I mentioned, so they do not have majors. What our students have instead is an area of specialization. When the student has gotten to the point in the program where they select their area of specialization, then there is a specific program track that the student must adhere to in order to successfully complete that area of specialization. So let us say, for instance, if a student's chosen area of specialization is hospitality, then across the 3 years of the program, there are set 4 classes that the students must complete in addition to a few electives in order to ensure that they're on track to successfully complete that area of specialization. During the program advising, the student is sitting with an Embrace staff to ensure that they're selecting the correct classes, that they're building their schedules appropriately, that they're engaging with professors as they should, that they're reaching out to the different departments to get their necessary accommodations, and they're doing all they need to do to stay on track and stay on target. Our students all volunteer with volunteer activities chosen by the students. Some of them will volunteer at food pantries. Some of our students volunteer in the nature preserve. So it depends on the student's interest. And our students are earning 20 volunteer hours per semester. The faculty mentor meetings are another mandatory part of the program. And this is basically a one-on-one meeting with the student and a faculty on campus, not somebody within the FIU Embrace program, but a faculty or a staff on the larger university campus. And this person meets with the students in a one-on-one capacity weekly for an hour to work with the students on goals, navigating challenges, whether they're on campus or off campus, and really working with them to determine how it is that they're going to achieve whatever goals it is that they have set out, and accessing the resources to achieve these goals. Academic mentors are undergraduate students that are hired and trained by our program. They're undergraduate FIU students, so they're their peers, and they work with them in more of a tutoring capacity. So they assist them with navigating the academic components of being on campus. So how do you do your assignments? How am I going to break down the assignments in a format or in a way that the student is able to understand? How am I going to work with the students on accessing their books at the bookstore, or accessing electronic material, engaging with the professors, working in a group, going with them if needed to a group work, working with them on assignments, things of that nature. So the academic mentor provides any type of one-on-one support that the student needs to navigate the academic component of being on campus. And then we have social mentors who are also undergraduate students at FIU who are trained by us. They work with the students to assist them in navigating the social pieces of being a college student and social skills that will transition beyond the program. So for instance, how do I find clubs on campus? How do I go to the football games? How do I engage in true Panther life? What do I do during homecoming? Where do I eat on campus? And on the weekend, right? On the Saturdays, Sundays, late evenings, instead of my parents organizing activities for me or my parents going to the movies with me, how do I live a typical college life without my parents? So the social mentors may help them to figure out what movies are showing, go to bowling, do laser tag, maybe there's a party on campus. The students have different interests, so they may not all agree to go to the same activities. There are, of course, some students that are way more sociable than other students, so they'll be engaging in more social activities than other activities, but the social mentors really assist them with that, and also identifying what are appropriate behaviors when we do engage in these social settings with our peers. So if I go to a football game and there's a line to get a ticket, do I just walk up to the front of the line and cut in front of everybody else because I do not want to wait? Or do I understand that sometimes I do need to wait and do need to stand in line, and those are appropriate behaviors when we're engaging socially? At the beginning of the call, I mentioned that employment is a big component of the program. So we do have job shadowing and internship, which are basically employment opportunities. The students have opportunities to build on soft skills and hard skills throughout the 3 years of the program in order to prepare them for long-term employment when they have exited the program. Job shadowing is a placement that is on the university's campus. This is a placement with different departments that have partnered with us to assist the students in developing these skills. And the idea is that when the student has done job shadowing, and they can start at a minimum of 5 hours in job shadowing, and as they continue to build skills, they can go up to a maximum of 12 hours in the job shadowing piece. In the third year of the program, they moved to internship, and the internship is an off-campus placement, and the internship is at 20 hours per week. And as I mentioned, on graduation, we're looking to have the students placed in long-term employment, whether it be part-time or full-time, as determined by the student. The dorm experience, so our students do have the ability to stay in the dorms even though they are non-degree seeking students, but that is a separate application. So that is not the same as the program application. With the dorm experience, our students are living in the dorms just like their neurotypical peers, and they are receiving supports. And in a further slide, I'll talk a little bit more about what the dorms look like. Student clubs, FIU has hundreds of clubs, and our students are eligible to join these clubs as long as it's not a club or a group that requires a GPA. So for instance, our students will not be able to join sororities or fraternities because you need to be a degree seeking student, but they can definitely participate in a lot of the activities that those organizations would host on the university campus. That being said, the clubs that require GPAs or require you to be a degree seeking student are the minority. The majority of the clubs do not have that requirement, so our students are engaged in several clubs across campus, whether it be photography, whether it is a student government club, clubs related to various topics, many to mention. And if there's a club that they think of that doesn't exist, there is an opportunity to form your own club within the rules and regulations of the university, of course. We have peer mentors. Peer mentors are FIU Embrace students, current FIU Embrace students that have already gone through at least 1 year of the program. They are trained as mentor, and then they are matched to new FIU Embrace students, year 1 students. Think of it as a buddy system. So they're matched to these students. They're showing them around the campus, showing them where to hang out in downtime, having lunch with them for those first few weeks when you're on campus and you haven't yet made your own friends or really made FIU your home. We understand that coming to FIU from high school, it's a very big transition for our students, not just the size of the campus, but the structure of the program. High school is very different in that your schedule is usually back to back. You move with the same group of students, but college is a little different, or a lot different. So the peer mentors really assist the students in providing that support that they need during the first semester of the program. Physical activities integrated in the program, where students have access to FIU's gym. They're able to use the FIU workout classes like the Zumba classes, the yoga classes, etc. And for students who want personal training, they're able to do so at an additional cost. We also have Special Olympics on campus. So our students are able to participate in Special Olympic sports and use any other physical fitness amenity that the university offers. And being that it is a university, we do have lots of opportunities for our students to participate in conferences. And so that is definitely a major plus and something that our students definitely look forward to. Just last week, we had a group of students who were in Colorado for the State of the Art Conference, which is a conference focusing on various post-secondary programs similar to ours. And two of our students had an opportunity to do a presentation at this conference. So I was super excited about it, and I'm sure the students were very excited about it as well. And we have another opportunity that's coming up for our students. They are going to be doing participating in a study abroad program with their neurotypical peers for a few of the students whose area of specialization is hospitality, and they're interested in working in a culinary setting. So they're going to be doing a study abroad in Italy to build on their culinary skills. So very exciting. They're excited about it. The typical university students who are going with them are also excited to have them there as well. So that is also a part of the program, that our students do participate in conferences, just like the typical college students. For persons who are joining a bit later, just letting you know that the presentation is being recorded, and I'm going to be emailing it out to everybody that's on the call. So if you miss something, you will get it. Go ahead, Nicole.
Crystal, I just want to make a comment because we've had a question about this in the chat, which is about taking online courses. The purpose of the program, we are federally and state approved, which allows our students to get both FAFSA and other state scholarships, which we'll go into later. In order to acquire that approval, it requires that our students are more than 50% of time in an inclusive environment, which means taking courses with neurotypical individuals, being in activities with neurotypical individuals, etc. And why that is important to us is that we are teaching our students how to live, work, and thrive in community. And so we use the university environment as a city, as a petri dish for them to learn skills and practice skills. And so all of these, what you might consider to be additional activities like conferences and study abroad, we don't consider that to be additional. We consider that to be part and parcel of the program that again goes towards teaching and them having been experiencing what it's like to live independently. So I just want to address that question because I don't know that I addressed it completely in the chat. Thank you, Crystal.
Great, thanks to Nicole. Okay, actually, Nicole, I'm going to ask you if you could jump back in to talk a bit about the micro-credentials. So as Nicole unmutes, another question that we do get asked a lot is, what do the students get at the end of the program, right? If they're not earning a degree, what are they achieving? And the short answer to that question is that our students do earn a certificate. Our students also have the opportunity to earn industry level certifications and micro-credentials. Micro-credentials is more of, I'd like to say, a university term. So a lot of times you say micro-credentials and the parents look at you asking you, okay, so what's a micro-credential? So Nicole is going to talk us through the micro-credentials.
Okay, so what a micro-credential really is the demonstration of skill set of a particular segment of the course. And what that says is the student has achieved, they have achieved mastery in these particular skills that we're testing on, right? So it is like an industry certification, but it is developed at a university. All universities across the United States offer micro-credentials. And what I'll do is I'll go into an example of one to be able to give you a sense of how that translates into what employers need to see that the student is ready to work. So let's take, and before I do that, there are two types of micro-credentials, those that are active and those that are in development. Every micro-credential, the university has over 100 micro-credentials. These are the ones that we have developed in collaboration with the different colleges. And it is definitely for our students, but that doesn't mean that our students could not take other micro-credentials that are developed by other colleges if they were interested in, right? So there's a micro-credential on leadership skills. If they wanted to do that, they can do that. As well as neurotypical students could take all of our micro-credential. Again, the foundation of this is that this is an inclusive environment, and so that they are a part of and not separated from neurotypical students. And so there are two stages. The active stage means, the active micro-credentials means that the student of academic affairs and the provost have already approved the micro-credentials, and students are not just enrolled, but actively being assigned micro-credentials after they complete all segments of the requirements. I'll explain it in greater detail. Don't worry. The in development stage means that students may be engaged in the work, but right now that micro-credential is under review by the provost and student of academic affairs for final approval. No student will be enrolled in a micro-credential in development if we are not sure it is not going to be approved, right? So what we do sometimes is say, we're going to go ahead and approve students being enrolled in food production because we already know by the forms and everything that was sent in, our numerous meetings, that it's going to be approved. And so the classes are available now, and we want the student to be enrolled given the timing of the classes. The way a micro-credential is developed is that the student, there are specific courses that the students must take, must be enrolled in, and must complete in order to be able to earn the micro-credential. The difference is, while they are enrolled in an inclusive course, right, with neurotypical individuals, they really only are tasked and must complete certain assignments that have already been pre-identified and established as being related to the micro-credentials. So if they wanted to earn that micro-credentials, they must complete those assignments with a passing grade, all right? So they can complete the other assignments and not pass it, but those assignments that are specifically assigned to the micro-credentials, they must pass. I'll give you an example of a micro-credential that the student is enrolled in and is in development. So food production is a very active area for us. Right now, I believe, and Crystal could correct me, we have 10 or 12 students in that micro-credential. And that is really teaching students how to be a sous chef. Now, let me just say that when the micro-credential is issued, it is a link that the student can place on their resume. A potential employer can click on that link and see exactly what the student passed and what the student may be mediocre in, right? So they'll see their full grades, they'll see the skill sets that they have mastered. And so that gives, and it is issued by the university. It is not issued by FIU Embrace. It is issued by Student Affairs. It's not even issued by the college, but it's issued by Student Affairs. And so it has the weight of the university behind it. So as I said originally, there are 10 to 12 students enrolled in food production. That micro-credential requires the students to be in class with a typical faculty who is teaching cooking at the School of Hospitality and Management. And they're in class 4 days a week, where it is some didactic or presentation kind learning. And then the student they have time to practice the skills, whether it be cutting, braising, cleaning vegetables, etc., or plating. So they practice the skills. And then at different points throughout the semester, they are being tested on the skills through the demonstration of those skills. And this is a micro-credential. All our micro-credentials are developed by faculty. They are not developed by the FIU Embrace staff. They have to meet the muster or the criteria by the university that there is academic rigor to it. And the students really do have to earn the micro-credential. This is not a, let's take the class and then you get it at the end of the class. You must earn it. A lot of our micro-credentials require demonstration of skill, which is nice. It is not just written work or taking exams. It might be presentations in class, all of those things. And I assure you that our team of academic mentors that Crystal alluded to earlier are aware of the assignments that are attached to micro-credentials and works diligently with the students so that they could pass it. Obviously, if a student doesn't pass the first time, they have one additional time. They may have, based on the faculty, one additional time to retake the exams. So the food production that I was discussing earlier, this is actually, the chef was so impressed by our students that are in that course that he invited us. We requested and he selected 4 students to go with the study abroad because he felt that their skill level in the kitchen and their safety level was very close to the neurotypical individual. In that kinds of cases, right, this food production will take 2 years to earn. It's a 2-year micro-credential. And so they must be involved every step of the way for the full 2 years to earn the micro-credential. In that micro-credential, they also are required to earn industry certification like Serve Safe, etc., that they will take, that they are prepped for, they take the industry exam and they pass it. I believe all of our students have already passed that industry exam and on. That's why they're on to the cutting and all of the other stuff. The other micro-credentials, so if you look at the active list, the hospitality operations is developed in similar fashion with the same faculty who's developed the food production, fundamentals of corporate communications and fundamentals of digital communication was developed by and is active through our College of Carter. So they are arts and digital animation, etc. Fundamentals of food, dietary systems, and basic nutrition was developed by and is active through our college of, our Stemple College of Social Work and Public Health. In that college, there's also dietetics and nutrition. And computer technology, food production, principles of operating room and transportation are very close to being done. As you would imagine, principles of operating rooms and fundamentals of aesthetic therapeutics techniques are being finalized by our College of Nursing. And I share this in-depth detail because I want to make it clear that these micro-credentials are not a give. The students must earn them. This is an academic part of our program, which we support the students in getting and learning these skill sets. While we only have 4 in development right now, we are looking at and will be exploring development of further micro-credentials, but it has to be based on availability of jobs in that field. So, you know, if your son or daughter gets in, you might be hearing from us next academic year of some other micro-credentials that we're working towards development. And I think that's it. Yes, the study abroad is for culinary. The way study abroad works is that study abroad is developed by a faculty, and that faculty establishes, it's academic. So this faculty must establish the pedagogy and the academic rigor that goes along with that study abroad. Our faculty who is actually teaching the food production micro-credential, developed. I think he has 4 study abroad programs. And we will be doing, he selected 4 students to go on this study abroad in December for a week. And just to give you a sense of what our students will be doing there, they will be doing exactly what other students would be doing, I would assume. Not at the level of neurotypical, but there is 1 day of cooking, learning how to cook Florence types food, learning how to cook food of the region. There's 1 day of wine, understanding wine making and pairing. There's 1 day of desserts, which I am personally looking forward to, making desserts, pastries, etc. And then there is a gastronomic experience of going from restaurant to restaurant, to be able to experience the food being held at the restaurant, and the chefs will be discussing their choices and how they prepare the meals and how they prepare. So it is an academic, there is an academic component to study abroad. At this time, Embrace, Crystal and I have not developed a study abroad for specifically Embrace, because our challenge is at least 50% of the time the student must be in an inclusive environment. And so if we do our own, it is not inclusive. And so I'll pause there and turn it back to Crystal.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay. All right, so we have gone in great detail discussing a lot of the activities and a lot of the components of the program that the students must participate in. So of course, there has to be some level of supports which are attached to these program components to ensure that our students are successful. Some of the program supports I would have already alluded to or would have already spoken about, so I do not need to really explain those in great detail, but I will go through the main supports which we have right now on the slide. So FIU Disability Resource Center. So the Disability Resource Center, or the DRC for short, serves anybody at FIU's campus who has a documented disability and is in need of accommodations. So you do not have to be an FIU Embrace student to access the Disability Resource Center. That being said, every student that is registered with FIU Embrace is also registered with the Disability Resource Center. And in doing so, the student is then able to receive accommodations in their FIU classes or accommodations on campus as needed. So we support the student in submitting the necessary documents that the DRC requires. We also support the students, and by we, I'm talking about FIU Embrace staff, of course. We also support the students by assisting them in doing the initial meetings with the DRC to ensure that the students are able to communicate effectively with the DRC regarding the supports they need in the classroom and in explaining the various accommodations that they need. Some of the accommodations that our students are able to get in the classroom include extended time for exams, whether it is time and a half or double time, getting a note taker, being able to record their notes, a private room or a quiet room to do their exams. We have some students that need to have special software for them to be successful in class. So if it is that the student has needs to have the fonts or the screen bigger or the screen enlarged in order for them to see the content on the screen, we can have that software downloaded or uploaded on their personal devices, but also the devices that are used at FIU Embrace, where the students have a computer lab that they have access to. We also have some students that, based on the type of hearing aid that they use, they would need a professor to wear a special mic so that the audio feeds directly into the hearing device that the student uses. So that is also an accommodation that is able to be done on campus. And of course, there may be other accommodations that I am not privy to, and we will work that out with the students. And if it is an accommodation that the university offers, of course, then the students would receive the necessary accommodation. We do have some students that do have some challenges navigating the campus. It's a large campus. We have students who perhaps have done, let's say, surgery, or a student that has mobility challenges. So we do have different ways that our students, not just FIU Embrace students, but the larger university student community, that they're able to traverse the campus. And this includes freebie. So we do have freebie on campus, which think of it as a free Uber service. So there's an app that goes with the freebie. The student puts in where they are trying to get to on the university campus, and the ride picks them up and drops them off at this particular area on campus. And the freebie also serves a few areas around the university within a specific radius. So for instance, they can get to the Publix across the street, or the Walgreens across the street, etc. There is also Tap Ride on campus, which serves the same purpose of having persons get from one point on the campus to the other, if it is that they have mobility issues. And these are free. Both the freebie and the Tap Ride are free. So that's the Disability Resource Center. And as I mentioned, every FIU Embrace student is registered with the DRC. And then what the DRC does is that the DRC communicates with the professor to let the professor know that there's a specific student in their class that is registered for services through the DRC. So to give an example, I'm Crystal Sutherland, and I'm registered in a public speaking class and for the spring semester. And I need to have a note taker, and I also need to have extended time to be successful. Because I'm registered with the DRC, what I would do is I would send the paperwork to the DRC before the semester starts to let the DRC know that these are the classes that I'm registered to take, and these are the professors that will be doing the classes. FIU Embrace staff will assist the students in submitting that paperwork to the DRC. What the DRC then does is sends out a notification to the professor ahead of the class to say, hey, Professor Nicola Tong, Crystal Sutherland is registered to take your public speaking class. She's at DRC, she's registered with the DRC, and these are the accommodations that she must receive. So this is not optional. These are accommodations that she must receive in order to be successful in your class. So Nicole knows that I am in her class and she must give me these accommodations. And then we at FIU Embrace encourage the students to personally introduce themselves to the professors, so the professors are able to put a name to the face. Of course, if a student does not want to have that face-to-face meeting with the professor, we do not force them, but we encourage them to do so, because of course it's beneficial if the professor knows who should be receiving the necessary accommodation. And if the students would like a staff member to accompany them to that first meeting, then that's something that we do as well. We have job coaches. That's another one of our supports, and the job coaches provide supports in those employment settings that I would have explained earlier. And I already explained the peer mentorship, academic mentorship, social mentorship, and faculty mentorship. We do have program staff. So there is a program coordinator that's assigned to each cohort. There are 3 years of the program. We have 3 cohorts. I'm the director of the Education and Employment Services section. So of course, I serve as a support to the students as well. And we have program staff and program managers that do work with the students as well. This presentation is primarily on FIU Embrace Education, but just so that you are all aware, we do have FIU Embrace Medical, which is across the street from FIU. And it is a partnership with FIU and Citrus Medical. And we do offer medical services to students who are in need of these services and choose to receive services from Citrus Medical. And one of the main supports, or one of the main services that the students opt to use is therapy, that's talk therapy or psychiatry services, of course, if it is needed. And it would be through the student's insurance. The student is connected to those supports. Go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, you could have, sorry, Crystal, you could finish. Go ahead, you finish and then I'll speak.
Sure. So what it is we do is we provide a referral. We link the students to services, and we walk them through the process to get linked. We have a partnership with them, and in having this partnership, if the student signs or the family signs a release of information, I have a monthly meeting with Citrus, so I'm able to communicate on the student if it is that the student, of course, gives the permission. So I'm able to give some insight into what is happening at school, where we're seeing the students struggling, what is it that we notice is happening. They're able to give us some insight into what kind of supports we're able to provide on the education side of the house to ensure that the student is as successful as possible. Nicole?
Let me jump in and say, and we did not frame the start of our discussion in this manner, and perhaps we should. FIU Embrace is a center. Our center is Center for Advancing Inclusive Communities. And so we frame our work from a system of care perspective with the knowledge, knowing that our students require a very holistic response, wraparound services and supports. You know, the goal of our center is to help people with developmental disabilities live informed and engaged lives in community. So we're really pushing inclusiveness. And so the medical services was developed within FIU Embrace with the College of Medicine. And then once it was established as good and best practice in terms of clinical practices, we put it out to partnership with Citrus, allowing more people in the community to have access. The good thing about having your son or daughter participate in any of the connective kind of services we provide is it allows for a one-stop kind of experience with us, right? And you can continue medical services outside if once the student graduates from FIU Embrace. And the other thing I want to point out is you do not have to sign an informed consent that allows Crystal to have conversations with the clinical team. You can choose to have the services without having that connected feature so that we can keep the clinical team informed as to how the student is doing on a day-to-day basis. So that's the only thing that I wanted to share, Crystal, about that. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nicole. So yeah, I think we went through all the supports. So those are the supports or the main supports, I should say, that are offered to the students. Of course, there are a few students that may need supports that are more tailored to the student, but not necessarily a part of the general supports that we offer. And that's a conversation that we'd have to have with each individual family to see if it is something that we are able to provide depending on the need.
Crystal, before you go on, there's a question in the chat that they're asking for more information, and I just want to go ahead and do that, right? So a question is, do all students participate in earning micro-credentials, or can they pick to participate in earning industrial certifications such as graphic design, etc.? So let me expand. The student can do both industry certification and micro-credentials together, right? So they can choose, let's say they were going to do, as this person is asking, they want to do graphic design, they may choose to do our corporate communication micro-credential and still go and do the work to earn a digital, an industry certificate. So my response was, yes, they can earn the industry certificate if it's available. So the university, it's not Embrace offering the industry certificates. It is, we have to do this in collaboration with the colleges. So the micro-credential is not done in isolation of the academic enterprise. It is done in support of and with the colleges. And that's the same way the industry certificate will happen. So by that, I mean, if the person is doing an industry certificate in graphic design, we will need to make sure that the college offers that industry certificate. It's available through FIU. If it is available through FIU, we will want to work with the college is ensuring that the student receives the needed academic teaching and ability to practice skill sets in order to pass and earn the industry certificate. So when I said, yes, they can choose to do the industry certificate, if it is offered, I have to say that I am not fully aware of every single industry certificate that the university offers. So if there is that interest, we would need to do, the last time I checked there was, but we will need to explore that further and be able to say to the student and the family, yes, it's available. And so, we can do it in this way. Before I answer the next question that came into the chat related to this, there was a question on how many people do we admit? We don't have a ceiling for admission. So mostly we admit students that are a match, period. Sometimes we would find a student is a match, but the family believes that the time that they have applied is not the right time of the family. Some crisis came up, something happened. We will work with that family. But generally, if you're a match, we will offer admission. So the next question is, what is the difference for a degree-seeking student qualifications? And I'm assuming the question is pointing to what is the difference between a micro-credential and a degree-seeking student qualification? I think that's the question, and so I'll answer it from that lens. A degree-seeking student must take courses associated with their degree. So I'm a psychotherapist by trade. I would have to take, I apologize for the dog, I will have to take abnormal psychology, and all of the psychology courses associated with my major. And I will have to do the university, it's university core curriculum courses. I'm trying to remember the lingo. These are core curriculum courses that every university across Florida must offer. English 1101 and 1102. They must do a certain level math. It's usually up to Algebra 1. They must do, there is a requirement for arts and all of these other kinds of requirements that get folded into the broader bachelor's degree, right? And so micro-credential, if you're doing, for instance, one of the micro-credentials, let's say graphic design, corporate communication, there are 2 courses that are associated with that micro-credential. The student must enroll in those 2 courses and must pass the assignments associated with the micro-credential. We already know what those assignments are, and we already work with the students to get them ready, prepared, and have them pass that, right? It's not a giveaway, but the student must do some academic work to be able to do that. So the difference here is the student is not taking the full breadth of coursework related to a bachelor's degree. And while we have a program of study of 3 courses every student must take, and Crystal, I'm going to need your help with this one because I can't remember the 3rd course. It's English 1101, writing and rhetoric, right? It's public speaking. And what's the other course?
First year experience and SLS
Thank
course.
you. And first year experience, which every student at FIU coming into FIU take the first year experience. And then they take all the courses related to their micro-credential. Further, our program requires that the student completes 12 courses. We do not go by credits, we go by 12 courses. So if after taking those 3 required courses and their courses for micro-credential, they are short 5 courses, guess what? They get to choose 5 electives, anything that would interest them. We have students taking the history of rock and roll. We have all kinds of art classes that the student takes because they have that interest and talent in those areas. So we do have a program of study that has been approved by the state and the feds. And so the student must follow that program of study. And so how that is similar to the bachelor's degree is that they must complete the program of study to say that they have successfully exited the program. I don't know if that answers the question. And I'll continue to, we'll get to the, Crystal, I'll just answer a few questions. We'll get to the funding in a minute. And so I'll put that question on pause. I think that part, once we get to that, there'll be other questions coming up. When does your program start? Crystal will get to when applications close and when programs start in a minute. But a quick question, what's the difference between the Dan Marino Foundation and FIU Embrace? The Dan Marino Foundation is not an inclusive program. The Dan Marino Foundation is a program that is in their building for students with autism, and it focuses on whatever area of specializations. I don't remember all of their area. I apologize, but I would encourage you to call them. FIU Embrace is a fully inclusive program, and you saw the areas of micro-credentials. We offer, besides internship, another difference is besides internships, we offer job shadowing, and then we move up to internship. So our job experience, including the volunteering, is sort of a scaffolding effect to help the students get ready for employment. So it's a slow ramp up, both in skill and time and acuity, to be able then to be successful in employment at the end of the program. The other difference is Embrace offers residential within an integrated setting. Dan Marino does not offer that. There is no residential on their part. Our campus is like a city. We have dry cleaning, we have banks, we have all those things. Dan Marino program focuses within a building. And so it is different. It is not bad. It is not better. We are just different. And I would encourage you to call them after hearing about this program, getting your questions answered. Please come back to us. Let us sit with you. I would encourage you to find the best program for your son or daughter. And it may be Dan Marino. I don't know. But please do your due diligence before selecting. Thanks, Crystal.
No problem, Nicole. Okay. So we went through supports. Okay, I'm going to go through student responsibilities, which of course is something that we do go through again when it is that students are starting the program, because it is very important for the students to know what their responsibilities are. And I suspect that I have mostly parents or potential parents on the call. So the students must comply with the university's policies, and this includes FIU's Student Code of Conduct. So when our students are accepted in the FIU Embrace program, they are true FIU Panthers. They get a Panther ID, so they are a part of the university community. All the rules and regulations that that govern the university would also apply to them. That being said, we do understand that the Student Code of Conduct is a very difficult document for our student population to read and understand. So as a part of our independent living skills seminars, we do have a few seminars that are geared towards breaking down the content of the Student Code of Conduct, ensuring that our students are understanding what are the rules and the regulations and the various policies on the university campus, and allowing an opportunity for our students to engage with this document, asking us questions as needed. Should a situation arise where a student is in breach of university policy and has to go before the Student Code of Conduct, what we do is we encourage the student to request for our presence at this meeting. And because they're adults, so I'm not able to just jump in a meeting without the students saying that they would like me to be there. So we strongly encourage the students to request our presence at this meeting. We ensure that the parents are aware. Parents are not able to join the meeting. And then usually I'm the person that would join the meeting on the student's behalf to ensure that the student is appropriately advocating for themselves and explaining whatever situation it is that happens. But I mean, in general, our students, for the most part, follow universities' policies and procedures. And in my experience, when it is that we do have students that are in breach, it is typically a misunderstanding, and it is something that we're able to navigate pretty seamlessly within the university's process. Students must participate in all aspects of the program. So there are some aspects of the program that the students may find boring, or they may not be as excited to attend. But this is a true university program, and it is a program in which all the aspects of the program are mandatory. So the students must participate in all aspects of the program. And it's a part of really preparing our students for independent living and living outside of the home, right? I try to tell them that everything that I do at work, I'm not excited to do it, but it is a part of my duties, right? It's a part of what I do at work. Every day at work is not a fun day at work, but I must show up and get the show going. So I try to explain that to them, for them to understand that, you know, even when your parents are at work, probably every single day at work is not a fun day, but there are responsibilities that we all have. And as adults, you have to adhere to your responsibilities, you know. So in explaining it to them, for the most part, they do understand, and they do adhere to the program structure. Communicating with program staff or assistants. When the students typically start the program, of course, they tend to rely on parents. They will have challenges at FIU, and then they'll go home and they'll explain the challenges to the parents. And while that is fine, what I want the students, or what we want the students to work towards, is communicating directly with program staff or assistants, in order for us to work with our students on those self-advocacy skills, and for us to work with them on figuring out how to independently navigate problems, or independently navigate challenges that they may be having. Because it is very difficult for a parent that is not familiar with FIU's systems and FIU's landscape to assist them to navigate challenges at home. So that usually is a bit difficult for the students to get familiar with, or to get used to doing. But it's something that we continue to work with them on throughout the program. Checking emails daily, that is a big responsibility of the students. As I mentioned, I've said a few times, this is a true university program. It operates within a university setting. And in light of that, the majority of the communication is through emails. And so our students must get into the habit of checking emails, and not just clicking on them so that they disappear, but actually reading the emails, engaging the emails. And if you really do not understand the email, that's fine, but bringing the email to somebody else's attention in order for them to assist you. And then collaborating with program staff to secure employment. A struggle that we do have with the students is that a lot of students will come into the program and they have a set dream in their mind as to where they want to work and when they want to work there. And then it becomes difficult to place them in other employment settings. And so we want students to understand that they need to collaborate with the staff. And I'll give an even more concrete example. So we'll have a student that will come into the program and their dream is to work at Disney. And we have job shadowing, as I mentioned, which starts in the first year of the program, and then they do an internship. But in the first year of the program, we're not able to place you in a job shadowing opportunity at Disney, because Disney's in Orlando, we're in Miami. You wouldn't possibly be able to communicate between Miami and Orlando. But let's just talk about what it is that you want to do at Disney. What is your ultimate goal? The student may say, oh, I would like to work with character development, for instance, for an example. Okay, well, Disney isn't the only place that does characters. We could start building on some skills. One of the things that you're struggling with is getting to work on time. You're struggling with all these things. Okay, let's just start at this particular site. We're going to work on these skills, and we're going to build until we get to the point we're at a place to apply for the job that you're thinking is your dream job, right? So the student, of course, has to cooperate with the job coach and cooperate with the program to understand that the first job isn't necessarily the dream job or your forever job. And of course, to remain courteous, professional, solution-oriented, and exhibit behaviors that are appropriate for a university campus. Okay, another big question that we do get from families is, okay, what does a schedule look like, or what does a typical day on campus look like? So you would be very hard pressed to find two students with identical schedules because our students are doing different things at different times. So as is typical for college students, the day is not, every hour for every single day will not be accounted for, or students will have gaps of time depending on the classes that they are engaged in. And I want to say this again, this is a sample schedule. This is not typically what a year one student schedule looks like. So what are some of the things that we want to keep in mind is that each, Nicole, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, great. So each student has 3 seminars. This is mandatory. So what you'll find is that if this is a sample of a year one seminar, year one schedule, every single year one FIU Embrace students will have these 3 seminars at the same time, or these 4 seminars rather at the same time. Then this particular student example, the student has personal training at this time at the rec center. That's the gym on campus. I'm looking on Thursday. Then SLS 1501, that's a class. So the student goes to class after they're finished with their personal training. And then on Thursday, they have a one-on-one session with their academic mentor. So this particular student, you can see on Thursday, the student goes from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. with 2 short gaps in between. But on Monday, this very student doesn't start until 12 o'clock on a Monday. So the student starts at 12 with that one-on-one session with a faculty mentor. Then the student has an English class that they do from 2 to 3:15. And then at 4 o'clock, they have a meeting with their social mentor. So the days do not look the same. The days are a little bit different. It depends on what classes the students are taking, the times of their seminars, etc. So what will tend to happen is that, for instance, in a student like this, I may have a parent that will call me to say, hey, I have to drop them off at school at 8:30, and there's nothing that the student has on their schedule between 8:30 to 12 o'clock. And the request is usually for me to fill this free time up. But that is not really how college works. A part of being independent is the student learning to manage gaps of time. So we do understand that there are challenges, right? We do understand that the student is going to struggle in the first few weeks, but it's a part of the learning process, right? After a few weeks, the students start to identify different activities that they can do in their own free time. And parents become surprised when students are getting so caught up with fun activities to do on campus that they start coming in late for sessions that they're supposed to come in for, which is really, it's typical college life, right? The students come on campus and they're just like every other student on campus. So this is in a nutshell what a typical schedule looks like. Every single hour is not accounted for. Some days are a bit earlier than other days. We do have students that start as early as 8 a.m., right? So that's another reason why we encourage parents to try to look into independent transportation options if that's possible for the family. Like for instance, SDS, that's Specialized Transportation Services. And I will send out the information on how to get connected to SDS when I send the details on today's presentation as well. Okay. Go ahead, Nicole. Let me go back.
Crystal, before we get to dorms, I want to answer a couple of questions that came up in the chat.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I want to get to them fairly quickly. So the 2 questions came up, one about guardianship, and the second question really is about degree-seeking students and supports that Embrace can provide. So let me first tackle guardianships. And so the question is, if a student has a limited guardian in place, how can they be prevent from participating in the program? Well, it depends on what the guardianship is in place for. So if the guardianship is in place for medical or finances, it does not affect the involvement of the program. The goal of the program, please remember, is to develop independence on the part of the student. If the guardianship is in place for transportation, education, or employment, we have to engage you for every decision related to those things. as opposed to speaking with the student, helping them make a decision and encouraging them to take that decision to you as a consultant and support to determine if it works for the family as a group. And so what we're doing is trying to build decision-making skills, which is an important skill in order to live as independently as possible, right? So let me give you a real life example of how that works. My daughter is cognitively impaired. She's intellectually impaired and blind. And I have a full plenary guardianship with her, but I use shared decision-making with her. So when we go to the doctor, she goes into the room with the doctor. We've gotten to a place where I have developed her enough and the physician that she goes into the room and does the time with the physician. And then when it's time for discussion and decision-making, I come back in and Kelly then says to me, this is what we discussed. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And that is the kind of interaction we are trying to develop in the students that are with us. So for example, if there were a guardianship in place for travel, when we do cooking, and Crystal will get to the seminars, we do seminars on independent living skills. We teach students how to cook, use a stove, use an oven, etc. Part of cooking is going to the grocery. There is a Publix across the street from FIU. As part of that seminar, the students have to go to Publix, have to make their grocery list, go to Publix, obviously with support and staff, buy this stuff, come back and do it on campus. They can't go to Publix without us calling you each and every time to get your approval. That says to me that the student's level of functioning will not be high enough that they can be successful in the program. If they have a guardianship in place for education, we could not work with the student to select classes to engage in any problem solving as it relates to their academics with the student alone. We will always have to have parents, and that's not the way our program is established and set up. So that's how guardianship affects the engagement of the program. To the next question of degree-seeking students. We do have a program for degree-seeking students, that is students who have already gotten into FIU on their own merits. These students typically have been diagnosed with autism, and they're somewhere on the spectrum, and they end up with challenges on campus, both academically and a lot of social and communication challenges as a result to their social cueing disorder, their processing, executive function, etc. We do have a similar program for those students. That program is not completely open to the public yet, and we are working to make that program available to people. So I know there's one person interested in this. Earlier in the chat, Paola put Crystal and my email in the chat. Please pick up our emails and email the three of us, and we'll schedule a call to talk with you. Okay? What if we live in Broward and not in Miami? Crystal, you want to take that one? And then the other one is living on campus optional? I don't know if you want to take those.
Sure, I can take all of those. So first, is living on campus optional? Absolutely optional. Students are not required to live on campus. Honestly, the majority of our students are commuter students. However, if the students, sometimes what happens is that the students want to live on campus, the parents do not want to live on campus, or vice versa. That's usually where we have that going. So I would say, think about it, explore it, if it's even something that you explore for the final year of the program. I find that the students that go into the dorms, they get pushed a little bit more. They are separated from their parents. They have to make a lot of decisions on their own continuously. And so the outcomes are are much more visible, right? They're doing their own laundry. They have to make decisions regarding their own meals. They have to do their own chores. Crystal isn't going into the dorms to clean their rooms for them, so they have to clean their rooms themselves. And parents are not allowed to go into the dorms to make meals for themselves. So then you start to find that the skills that we work on in independent living skills seminars that they pretend like they don't know how to do when they go home, when they're in the dorms, we realize that they actually can do the laundry and they can do it way better than we thought they could. And they actually can make their own meals. And they actually do know how to take their meds without being prompted by their parents. So I do understand, though, it's a big step, it's a big jump, it's a big push for the students. But if it is that you think it's something that's possible for your son or daughter, I would say try it. And it's a good opportunity to test their true independence within a university community with support staff, to be able to gauge whether or not they could actually live out in community on their own, right? Could they actually live in an apartment on their own or something like that? So that's what I'd say about residential. So the short answer is no, it's not mandatory. I just alluded to seminars, and on the screen you can see where we have seminars at the top. So seminars in general, it's an opportunity for FIU Embrace staff to work with students on independent living skills. So we do have a curriculum that we follow, and we do have several topics that we work on with our students. And some of the topics include travel and transportation. We're talking about health, nutrition. There is a food lab that's not only reserved for our students who are doing food production. We have a food lab that is available and mandatory for all students in FIU Embrace, and we're working on basic cooking skills. So making an omelet, making a salad, making a sandwich, making some sort of casserole. So basic meals that the students would be useful for the students to be able to prepare independently. We're talking about laundry and cleaning, budgeting and money management. All our students, for the most part, do struggle with budgeting and money management. And we're talking about sex and relationships. This is a college campus. While some of our students are not interested in having intimate sexual relationships, there are lots of students that have a lot of questions. They're afraid to ask parents. Sometimes parents do not want to have the conversations with them, but for whatever reason, the students are very comfortable to come in the office and ask me all types of questions. And these are things that we explore in seminars. This is a college campus, so we do have student health center on campus. So we also have student health center coming in and talking to students about different topics such as health, medication management, making an appointment independent of your parents. So independent living skills seminars, it's just an opportunity for students to really work on independent living skills. And it's also an opportunity for us to also continuously develop our curriculum. So we have had students ask for different topics to be discussed in these seminars. So we've had a few years ago, when we had elections going on, we had students coming to us wanting us to talk about voting rights, registering to vote, that kind of stuff. We've had students who were interested in getting their driver's license, and they wanted us to do a seminar on how it is that you get your driver's license. So that is really what the seminar component is. There was a question on Broward. I live in Broward. The program is Miami. We do have students who are living in Broward, and the program is in Miami. The big challenge for the parents in this instance is going to be transportation, right? It's going to be very difficult to do the travel and transportation, the commute every day from Broward to Miami. I commute from Broward to Miami every day, and I know it's a challenge. But what I can tell you is some of what parents are doing, so that you can keep this in mind if it is that you're exploring this option. So one thing that some parents do, so our primary campus is our campus, the Modesto Medi campus, which is on 8th Street. That's closer to Dolphin Mall, for those that are familiar with that area, in Sweetwater, right? So that is where our main campus is. We do have another campus at Biscayne Bay, and our Biscayne Bay campus is closer to Broward. There is a shuttle for FIU students and staff at no additional cost to FIU students, and this shuttle goes every 30 minutes between both campuses. For some parents who live closer to that campus, what they opted to do was to drop their son or daughter to the Biscayne Bay campus, and then the student takes the shuttle to the main campus to do their classes. At the end of classes, they take the shuttle back to Biscayne Bay, and then the parents pick them up from Biscayne Bay. That is one option. We have had parents who have TOPS. So TOPS is the transportation system that serves Broward County. I do not remember what the acronym stands for, but TOPS is the transportation system that serves Broward County for persons with disabilities. I have a parent right now in the program whose son has TOPS. TOPS will not come to Miami-Dade because they will not cross the county line, but there is a way that they can do a transfer to STS, and STS is the equivalent which serves Miami-Dade County, right? Specialized Transportation Services is what STS stands for. So that parent was able to navigate the handoff. So TOPS picks up her son from his home, brings him to the county line. TOPS does a transfer to STS, and then STS takes him to the campus in Miami. When he's through with school, STS picks him up, brings him back to the county line, and then he does a transfer of vehicle to taking TOPS home. That's another option. We also have some Broward parents who do the first year of commute, driving the students back and from the campus, and provided that the student successfully applies and is accepted to the residential piece, then the student does the rest of the program living in the dorms. And then, of course, we do have some parents who have made friends with other parents in Broward, and they have on their own navigated some sort of carpooling system between them. So those are some of the things or some of the ways I can tell you that Broward parents are navigating. A big question I get asked all the time is if there's a shuttle from the I-75 campus, I-75 FIU campus in Broward, that's the one in Pembroke Pines, to our main campus. And as of today's date, there is no such shuttle. The shuttles are only between the Biscayne Bay and the 8th Street campus. I think I would have answered all the questions you posed, Nicole. So I'm going to segue to residential.
So Crystal, if just there's a question on dorms, if you could include this, I think you're going to talk about it.
Yes.
Do they room with their peers or in private? So you may want to talk about the relationship of where the rooms are, etc.
Sure. Okay, so as I mentioned, there is an opportunity for our students to live in the dorms, and the dorm experience is a truly inclusive experience. Our dorm program is in the Everglades Hall, so we operate out of one specific building on campus. And to the left of your screen, this is the layout of what a typical dorm room looks like. So there are 3 bedrooms, and the bedrooms have a door to each bedroom, so the students are able to lock their bedroom. There is one shared bathroom, which is shared among the 3 students, and there is a common area with a kitchen space and a general sitting area. And then there's, of course, one door that persons use to enter the suite, and only the students who are in that dorm will have access to the suite, and of course the housing staff for emergency purposes. That being said, when our students are in the dorms, we place our students in their specific pods. The pods are, if it is that we have females in one pod, it's females only. If we have males in one pod, it's males only. Provided that we have sufficient females, then there is a high likelihood that our FIU Embrace female students will be placed in a suite with other FIU Embrace females, and the same for males. But let us say, for instance, if I only have one FIU Embrace female student that has applied and has been successfully accepted into the residential component of the dorm, it means that she would be housed with 2 neurotypical students, right? But of course, if there are 2 other female students, then the likelihood is that she would be housed with those 2 other students. There are several things that we take into account in matching the students, of course. If it is that these are students that are going to be triggering each other or not going to be appropriately matched in the same pod, then that is something that we take into consideration when we're matching students. So there are various things we take into account when matching students. What kinds of supports do we provide in the dorms? So I have mentioned various undergraduate student positions that we hire and train persons for. In the dorms, what we have are community assistants. So community assistants are undergraduate FIU students who are living in the dorms, who are hired and trained by us to work with the students in the dorms. And for persons that are familiar with dorm life in any other university, you are probably familiar with the term RAs, residential assistants, who are persons who live in a dorm who are working to provide supports to students. And that is the similar setup that we have for CAs. But our CAs have additional steps. They provide additional supports, of course, because our students need additional supports. Some of these supports include a check-in in the morning and a check-in at night. So our students living in the dorms do have a curfew, even though typical students do not have a curfew. And we have implemented a curfew for our students for safety reasons, of course. So our CAs do a check-in in the morning. Hey, Nicole. Hey, Paola, are you awake? Is everything good? Did you have a good night? Are you having any challenges? Anything? Okay, let's get going. Time for you to get to class. The CA leaves, the student independently gets themselves ready for class or wherever it is they need to do. We have check-in in the night. Let's say check-in is about 9 o'clock in the night. The CA would go to each individual's room, knocks on the door. The student must open the door. The CA must lay eyes on the students and just to do a check-in. Hey, are you good? Is everything good? Did you have dinner? All is well? Okay, bye, right? The student does not have to be sleeping by curfew. The student just needs to be in the building by curfew. The student stays in the dorms for the academic year. They would go home for Thanksgiving, they would go home for winter break, they would go home for spring break. If it is that there is a hurricane, of course, they would have to exit the dorms if there is a hurricane during the evacuation period, clearly, right? Prior to the hurricane actually getting here, when all students and everybody else in Miami is evacuating and preparing for hurricane, our students must leave. That being said, the dorm is not an opportunity for the students to stay on campus from Monday through Friday and then go home for every single weekend, right? That is not how the dorm is structured. Even though parents are living in Miami, for the most part, we tell parents to pretend like you are several hours away and you have to travel by plane to get to your son or daughter. You will not be coming to pick them up in Chicago every single weekend to carry them back to Miami, right? So it's a little bit difficult at times for the students. They get very excited to be in the dorms. They get very excited to have this true college experience, but then they also have typical challenges. They become a bit homesick. They miss their home, they miss their siblings. And we do understand that there are social activities for them to engage in. There are times when our students do go home to participate or to be a part of larger family activities. So it may be mom's 50th birthday or 25th wedding anniversary, or somebody in the family is ill and you need to make a visit. So of course, we do take those things into account, but the idea is not for students to just remain in the dorms during the academic component of the week, and then for them to go home every night for dinner, every weekend to hang out, and then mom is coming to pick up the laundry, right? That is not what we are striving for when we have students in the dorms. There, in terms of the cost, etc. I know Nicole is going to be talking about that. We do have a program coordinator that is specifically working with the dorms, the students in the dorms. So helping them to navigate challenges, helping them to problem solve. There are times that disagreements will arise among roommates, as is typical of anybody that lives with anybody, even your own family. So how is it that we navigate these challenges in a healthy and respectful manner? Grocery shopping, right? Navigating grocery shopping as well, and things of that nature, and really engaging in on-campus life. So Nicole, I'm going to shift over to you right now so you could discuss the program costs and the funding. How is it that, so there is a cost, but of course there are several opportunities for families to fund the program without having to necessarily come up out of pocket. So Nicole,
Yeah. So thanks, Crystal. I think so. We use a couple of options to reduce the burden on families. I know this looks like a lot, but let me give you some context. There are different funders available that can either reduce the cost significantly so that families have to put minimal out-of-pocket money, or that the program is free. There's a substantial number of students who get this program for free, okay? And I'm going to tell you how to do that. First of all, what you're looking at is the program is broken up. The cost of the program includes a program fee, which the annual amount is $16,750. And as you can see below that, there is a breakdown of costs by semester. Our two largest semesters are the fall and spring semester. And so that $16,000 is prorated by weeks across the entire academic year, which is why you see the fall and spring semester at a higher rate, because those are 16 weeks, and summer A is 6 weeks, right? And then there is the cost of tuition, which is typical for any FIU student. Our students will be enrolled in 2 courses per semester and 1 course during the summer semester. And associated with those costs, FIU charges various fees like athletic fee, a health fee, a transportation fee. So the transportation allows for free travel back and forth between campuses. The health fee allows for, it's a mandatory fee. It's allowed that any student could go to our student healthcare services on campus and receive no cost services, and an athletic fee of $10 per semester allows the student to gain access to our recreational facility at no cost to the student because they're already paying the fee. So typically, as you can see to the right of your screen, this breakdown is what, after a student enrolls, is a typical cost of what the student enrolls. So you see the undergraduate tuition there of $1,027, followed by course fee, which is really our program fee. So the total amount for the tuition and the cost in this category is $8,080. And then, of course, below that is the list of fees that totals to $208 that every student pays. It doesn't matter. I'm a graduate student. And Crystal is a graduate student, and we pay all these fees as well. So it doesn't matter what program you're in, it's a fee that you have to pay. And then there are other fees that we decided to put in this example, some of which will apply to our students and some will not. The Panther Book Back is a $100 fee that allows students to really get their books at significant cost reduction, right? So instead of paying $60, $70 for a book, sometimes over $100 for a book, all books combined for the semester will be around $100, right? And it's really a loan of a book rather than owning a book, which works really good for our students. And then, of course, if you're late on registration or late on payment, then there is a $100 fee for each of those, right? And at the bottom, the last line, you're really going to see how credits are applied to the program. And this is an actual student fee breakdown that Crystal has provided for us. And you can see that there was a cash payment, there was a check payment of $1,700. In this case, the family had to make a payment. There was a payment of $377 from vocational rehabilitation. There was a stipend that the student got from FIU Embrace, and then FIU Embrace paid the actual program, part of the program fee for the family. So not only do you see exactly what the breakdown of the cost is, you then see exactly where the money is coming from that's allocated to the account. So let me get to the burning question of, how can I get this at free or the most reduced cost possible? We suggest that if you have Florida prepaid, you hold on to that and don't talk about it in the beginning. Okay, don't consider that as part of your options for funding this program. The first step is to go and apply to vocational rehabilitation. Vocational rehabilitation pays the program fee, pays the school fees, pays all the semester fees that you see there, all of that. The issue with vocational rehabilitation is you must apply, you must go through the evaluation process. If you are going through the application process and need an evaluation, and we have completed the evaluation, you can use our evaluation already, and it can be, they'll take it because they know our evaluation well, right? I'll get to the scholarship in a minute. I see somebody posted that. I'll get to the scholarship in a minute. Vocational rehabilitation, every student must apply for vocational rehabilitation. Every student will be, once approved by vocational rehabilitation, it's a cost share program. Most of our students end up with 0% cost share. Some families end up with a 20% cost share where they have to pay 20%, and VR will pay 80% of the total cost of the program, right? Another option, so yes, your Florida prepaid can be applied, but we ask the parents hold that as a last payer of last resort, right? Let's draw down these other areas first. So regardless of your disability type, whether it's intellectual disability or autism, you can apply, and you must apply to vocational rehabilitation to determine what your cost share is. I'll give you an example. I just did an interview. This student applied for the next incoming class, and he already has his cost share done. VR pays 100% for him. Okay, that's good to know so that we can help navigate when we help with the registration. We help actually get the payment as well, but we'll talk about that later. The other option is Florida Center for Students with Unique Ability will provide students with intellectual disability a $15,000 annual scholarship that the program applies for. We must report your son or daughter's academic progress on, right? And then we must return any money or disperse money to your son or daughter if it is not used. Most families use a combination of Florida Center for Unique Abilities scholarship and vocational rehabilitation. Let me explain why. There are some things that vocational rehabilitation will not fund. They will fund anything associated with commuter education. They will not fund residential. And a part of residential, we require any student in residential to get a meal plan. They will not fund meals. However, Florida students with unique abilities will fund residential and will fund a meal plan. The other thing that I don't remember if Crystal mentioned, the other thing that Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities will fund that VR does not fund is the funds we require every parent to put into an account for teaching students how to budget. So every month we ask families to put $200 into a checking account for their students, for their son or daughter, so that we can teach them how to budget, how to save, how to spend. VR is not going to put that money on the table, but Florida Center for Students with Unique Ability will provide those funds, right? So the question earlier about why do we do such an in-depth evaluation, we also use this evaluation to justify our application for scholarships from the Florida Center for Students with Unique Ability. Okay, so that's part of whatever. Let me just say further in this is that we are a university. We cannot take McKay. We cannot take any high school funding that to be able to put that towards the cost of this program. Okay. The other thing that VR will fund is study abroad. They will not fund the cost of the airline ticket, but they will fund the entire program for study abroad. So for example, this study abroad that we're doing in December was $2,900 and something. VR paid for all of that, paid for their uniforms that they have to wear while they're there, okay? And paid for the uniforms that they must wear while they're in the kitchens here. So VR will pay for all of that. That is why by getting VR, if you also get Florida's Center for Students with Unique Abilities scholarships, you're stretching the monies to be able to cover everything. So let me just say, I know there are a couple questions coming into the chat, but on this question of cost, right? Once VR pays, then Florida Students for Unique Ability pays. If there is a balance, and most likely there will be not, but if there is a balance, then we will apply any Florida prepaid at all to the account. An important note to remember is Florida prepaid applies cost based on credits. So people think that, oh, I'm going to get so many thousands every semester to be able to cover the tuition. No, they pay for the number of credits. And this is only 6 credits, 2 courses. Sometimes a student end up with 7 or 8, but really they will only fund the cost per credit. So that's an important piece to remember. So I wonder, so I don't need, so the question is, my nephew already is approved for VRS. Are you talking about vocational rehabilitation services? If at 100%, if the answer is yes, do you need an IEP from them? We do not need any IEPs at all from anybody. We would like you to send in your last IEP or your last psychological as a part of the application so we can get to know your son or daughter. But remember, we are conducting a brand new, fresh psychoeducational evaluation with adaptive scorings, executive functioning, and other measures. So we do not need that for VR or to do anything else. And so if this is a family that is saying they have 100% of VR, what we will need for you to do when you apply is give us that letter that says you're 100% VR. Attach that to the application so that, number one, we can see who your counselor is, and we can communicate with them. VR sits on our selection committee. So VR, and the reason, so if you already have VR, regardless of what your cost share is, we will ask you please to include that, because when we do the selection committee, VR has all the names and going to work with us quickly to get the vouchers to pay for the program. We work with the students to do this through the email process, and we have taken a lot of the burden away from the parents and caregivers so that you do not have to engage VR in an intimate fashion to get them to pay for this program. Crystal and her team, and believe me, it is a painstaking process, works behind the scenes with our with the folks at FIU in the financial department, student finances, to be able to get the funds applied to the account. And there's a question that says, does the program accept Step Up? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. And so if you can send me some information, I'll be happy to take a look to see if we could accept Step Up. My goal, it is the goal of our program to accept as much outside funding as we can to be able to help families. So Crystal and I also engage donors We do have a scholarship fund, for very limited scholarship fund that we use sparingly. Families can get a one-time scholarship from FIU Embrace. We use it sparingly. We actually have two scholarship funds. One does not allow us to pay for residential or meals, and the other one would. But we go out and we pound the pavement to try and get additional scholarships as well to help families, because we understand that this is costly. And so let me just answer a few questions related to financing. Do we submit our own FAFSA or FIU Assist? So we will, once we know, for the individuals who have been, do we submit our own FCSUA, or does FIU assist? You don't submit anything. The program, for every student that is accepted, we do all of the submitting of the request, all of the reports. We have to do quarterly reports. We have to do annual reports. We do all of that to be able to justify the dollars. I will tell you this. We have had a continuous problem where students come into the program and for whatever reason, there is the families and or the parents and or the students refuse to participate in certain parts of the program. If that occurs, because it has happened so many times, and I'll give you an example, or Crystal can provide examples as well. If that occurs, the funders, like VR we notify the funders every time a student does not participate in something, and we must notify the funder when the student is not compliant with satisfactory academic process. And once you get in, we'll talk about what that entails, what are the requirements, how we measure that. That's a separate, a much longer conversation. But if the student is not complying with satisfactory academic progress, including attendance and participation in all mandatory aspects of the program, we report that to the funder. Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities says they will defund the student, and that any money they put forward that academic year must be repaid by the parents. And Division of Vocational Rehabilitation has said they will immediately stop funding. So there is while we take care of all of that kind of back and forth with the funders, there is a compliance issue that the students must adhere to in order to maintain continuous funding. I would also say something else that's not here on the funding sources is FAFSA. Every student is required to complete a FAFSA. Any student that gets into the program, we will send you a PowerPoint presentation that tells you how to answer each question. FAFSA is done differently for non-degree programs. This is about the only non-degree program that is funded by FAFSA. Some of our students get funding, others don't. Again, like Florida prepaid, the funding is based on the number of credits enrolled. So the student might get $400 only because it's 6 credits. So they might get $800 for the entire year, or they might get $900 for the entire year. Whatever it is, FIU receives it, Student Financial Affairs holds the money in abeyance, and then applies the funds each academic year. So I think with that, I don't, so let me answer a question for Florida Center for Unique Ability. This person says that their daughter has it. Can we just transfer that transfer scholarship to FIU Embrace at time of acceptance? If your son or daughter is in another post-secondary education program, and when we send out the recording of this, we will send a link to the list of all the programs in the state of Florida. There are also programs in Broward County. I will encourage all families to look at the programs. So there are programs from the Florida Keys all the way up to Tallahassee, Panhandle, etc. If it's a transfer student, we will have to look into why you are transferring. What is the challenge that you are then coming to our program versus not completing the program? And the reason why we do this, and we do that in consultant with Florida Center for Unique Ability, reason why we do this is every January, we have to report to the governor's office and to the legislature on the various students, where they are, did they complete the program, was it successful, etc. So I would say to you that the reason why we do this is to comply with the legislative request. Crystal, do you, I think I've covered everything, and I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay, the application process. So applications are currently open now for the fall 2024 semester. At this time, we only take students in the fall. So we have one admission time during the fall semester of each year. And applications are open and will close on March 29th, 2024. And by March 29th, 2024, we would need to receive all components of the application. So I will be sending out the link to the application when I send out the recording for the presentation. But by all components, what I mean is that all the recommendation letters need to be in, transcripts as needed need to be in, the completed application document itself needs to be in, as well as whatever else is required on the application document. The application process is a lengthy one, so I would encourage families and students that are interested in applying to start applying as early as possible. This is not an application that you can complete in a day, right? Meaning to complete the application and gather all the documents. There is a medical piece that is required, and that is a requirement of the university itself, not a requirement of our specific program. So I would encourage families to start having a look at that application document, start reaching out to your various references, start putting the packet together, because you may also have questions that you would like to ask us. But if it is that you wait until the 29th or the week of the 29th to start working on it, you may end up in a situation where you're not able to ask the question until beyond the deadline. And then at that point, you would have missed the deadline for fall. We have our deadline at this time because there are several components to the application process. So after we review the documents to ensure that the person is still appropriate for the program, we do have an interview. So the student interviews independently. The student also interviews a part of the interview with their parents or parents. And then if it is that the students and the family successfully past that stage of the interview, we do also have the psychological evaluation, as Nicole mentioned, which is also a lengthy process for that psychological evaluation to be completed. Provided that the student successfully navigates all those sections of the application process, then we do have a half day on campus where the students must come to the campus for a half day with other applicants who have gone to that stage of the application process, and they engage with the staff. They are able to sit through a seminar, which models a seminar that we would typically do in the program. They're able to see the campus, engage with the campus, eat some food on campus with some other students who are currently in the program as well, and basically spend a half day with our staff. It's a setting that is not as challenging as an interview. Some of our students find the one-on-one interviews a little difficult. Our students do get nervous, etc. So this is just a different way to engage with the students. So that is what the application process looks like. and we will email applicants for the applicants that have gotten through to this stage. They will hear by early summer if it is that they've been accepted in the program, whether or not they've been accepted, I should say.
Crystal, before you go to that, can I answer some questions that I think we need to address before finalizing this? And so there is a question about the VR person didn't recommend this program. And I don't know if the VR person told you no, not to apply, or if the VR person was not aware. VR has had significant turnover in their case managers, and there is a great possibility that the VR person was not aware of the in-depth part of the programs. Because their turnover is so high every year, we provide a similar, if not the same exact presentation to all currently employed VR case managers. So it could be that they just don't know about us. I assure you that VR sits on our application, our selection committee, and we work very closely on challenges, funding issues, all of that with the area director. In fact, it was with her assistance that we were able to get VR to approve the funding of the program fee. So I think you have to dig a little deeper to understand why they didn't recommend the program. I cannot answer that part. But if it is that the VR counselor did not understand or did not know much about the program, I could appreciate that, because they've had tremendous turnover. And the other thing you can do is you can still apply. You can also, in the meantime, while the application is moving through the process, we can set up a call with your VR manager to understand what their concerns might be and address it from that perspective. We'll be happy to do that. So I wanted to answer that. And FAFSA for 24-25 opens up December 1st, yes, and there are some new changes to FAFSA. So we are waiting for some of those changes to finalize before we update our presentation, but there are some changes to FAFSA. And currently enrolled students would be able to apply right as we update our application, our presentation, but for incoming students, you would apply as soon as you get your notification that you've been admitted. So I do not suggest you apply now, because it's tying the FAFSA award to a particular school. And so you really don't know if your son or daughter is in. So then the other question is, if your son or daughter doesn't meet the eligibility criteria, what is available? I would encourage you to send an email to us to tell us a little bit more so we can respond and guide you. Paula placed our email addresses in the chat earlier. I would encourage you to please do that. She also provided a link to the application. And so I would start filling out the application. And also, as you go through the application, there will be questions. So email us as you go along. And somebody said about Step Up. If you can send me a link or some information related to that funding, I'll be happy to look into it and work on it. We're happy to receive any additional fund or any other types of funds we're not currently accepting. So I think I was able to get all of the questions answered. Just give me 1 second. Let me just make sure. I think I was able to get So there's a question, is there an online course option for out-of-state potentials? Again, we have a program of study that outlines 3 courses that everyone must take, and the courses associated with the micro-credentials, as well as a list of electives which are available to most of the electives are available to all students at FIU. And so, yes, students have academic choice, and we encourage them to try classes that are completely different. So we have a lot of students who love music, and hip hop is their music of choice, but we would ask them to go rock and roll, or we would ask them to use a different type of genre so that they get exposed to different things. So I think that, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but our seminars, which are mandatory components of the program, are not online. Our seminars are in person, or independent living skills seminars.
Yes, and I mentioned this earlier in the chat. Can a student take an online course? Yes, a student can take an online course, but that reduces the requirement of over 50 or more time must be spent in an inclusive environment. And so we will have to justify that to the funder, and that cannot happen every semester. So there has to be some extenuating circumstances that allows that to happen. But this is a fully in-person program. And I think there are a couple more questions in the chat, Crystal. Is there a registration fee? There's no fee to apply to FIU Embrace. Once you get in and we accept you, then we will walk you through the process to submit a non-degree application, which takes 10-15 minutes, no more than that. And we do that in information session together, and there is a fee for that. I think it's like $25. So that's it, Crystal. I think I've answered everything.
Okay. We do understand that when persons start to review the video, right, it's a lot of information. We just gave 2 hours worth of information. So it's a lot of content to really digest, if you will. So when we, following this open house, I'm going to send out the video, as I mentioned. I am going to be sending out the application. I'm going to be sending out some program documents. And then when families review these documents, there are always questions that arise when we are no longer on the call. So what we have set up is 2 Zoom question and answer sessions. One will be on December 11th, 2023 from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And the other would be on January 19th, 2024 from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Paola is going to post the links for these 2 Zoom question and answer sessions. And of course, I'm going to ask parents or persons on the call to go ahead and just put your email addresses in the chat. The chat is being recorded, so I will get these email addresses just so I can ensure that you're definitely receiving it. The idea behind these Zoom question and answer sessions is that during the times that I have shared on the screen, either myself, Nicole, or Paola, it may be 2 of us, it may be 1 of us, or it may be all 3 of us, depends on what's happening on that specific date. We'll jump on this Zoom link and we'll make ourselves available for the two hours to answer any questions that parents will have as you review the content. It doesn't mean that you're staying on for the 2 hours. It means that we are available for the 2 hours and you can just jump on, get your question answered live, and then you can leave the session. So as I said, it's 2 upcoming Zoom question and answer sessions, 1 in December, 1 in January, with sufficient time before the deadline for the applications, just in case there are any questions that persons may have that are specific to the application.
Kristen, there's a hand raised, and I wonder if that person could just go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Sylvia, if you could unmute, please, to ask a question. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, no, sorry. I just want to write my email to get the link with the for registration. So I place the wrong. Yes. So no, I would like to get the link. So you're gonna send information, the link by email, the package.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Did you
You're
put
welcome.
Sylvia, did you put your email in the chat?
No, no.
But you've got to type your email in the chat for us to be able to send it to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone has any questions that you would like to unmute and ask your questions. Please go ahead. We'll give a few minutes for this and then we'll end the call.
I see that it was an error. It's okay, Sylvia. Okay, it does not appear as though we have any additional questions, but if Paola could just paste our email addresses again in the chat for persons who may have joined late. I know sometimes parents do have questions that they know are specific to their son or daughter, and they would just like to have a conversation off air, which is fine. So feel free to reach out to myself or Nicole with any questions you may have. We will be sending out the video in addition to the link to the application, some information on some other programs such as ours, as Nicole promised in Florida. I will also send out a link to vocational rehab in case there are families on the call that are interested in vocational rehab but have not yet sought services from them. I will also send out information for STS, Specialized Transportation Services, as well as the equivalent in Broward for families who are not familiar with that or are interested in that, whether it is because you're interested in the program or just for your own general knowledge. So I'll send that information to you all. Thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday morning of all mornings to hear about our program. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and thanks again for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.